Today for Fiction Friday, we're starting a new story since we finished Pep, the story of a brave dog, last week. This week, we're reading a short story that should only take us 2 to 3 weeks to finish. Still all about dogs, of course. It'll be a little palate cleanser from our longer tale of Pep. This story is called A Dog's Tale, and it was written by Mark Twain. Today, we'll be reading both chapters 1 and 2 since they're short. If you want to read along, you can find the link to the story in the description below. Let's dive right in, shall we? Chapter 1. My father was a St. Bernard. My mother was a collie, but I am a Presbyterian. This is what my mother told me. I do not know these nice distinctions myself. To me, they are only fine, large words meaning nothing. My mother had a fondness for such. She liked to say them and see other dogs look surprised and envious, as wondering how she got so much education. But indeed, it was not real education. It was only show. She got the words by listening in the dining room and drawing room when there was company, and by going with the children to Sunday school and listening there. And whenever she heard a large word, she said it over to herself many times, and so was able to keep it until there was a dogmatic gathering in the neighborhood. Then she would get it off and surprise and distress them all, from pocket pup to mastiff, which rewarded her for all her trouble. If there was a stranger, he was nearly sure to be suspicious, and when he got his breath again, he would ask her what it meant. And she always told him. He was never expecting this, but thought he would catch her. So when she told him, he was the one that looked ashamed, whereas he thought he was going to be she. The others were always waiting for this, and glad of it and proud of her, for they knew that it was going to happen, because they had experience. When she told the meaning of the big word, they were all so taken up with admiration that it never occurred to any dog to doubt if it was the right one. And that was natural, because for one thing, she answered so promptly that it seemed like a dictionary speaking. And for another thing, where could they find out whether that it was right or not? For she was the only cultivated dog there was. By and by, when I was older, she brought home the word unintellectual one time and worked it pretty hard all the week at different gatherings, making such unhappiness and despondency. And it was at this time that I noticed that during the week she was asked for the meaning at 8 different assemblages and flashed out a fresh definition every time, which showed me that she had more presence of mind than culture, though I said nothing, of course. She had one word which she liked to keep on hand and ready, like a life preserver, kind of an emergency word to strap on when she was likely to get washed overboard in a sudden way. That word was the word synonymous. When she happened to fetch out a long word which had its day weeks before and its prepared meanings gone to her dump pile, if there was a stranger there, of course, it knocked him groggy for a couple of minutes. Then he would come to, and by that time she would be away downwind on another tack, and not expecting anything. So when he'd hail and ask her to cash in, I, the only dog on the inside of her game, would see her canvas flicker a moment, but only just a moment, and then it would belly out taut and full, and she would say, as calm as a summer's day, "It's synonymous with supererogation," or some godless long reptile of a word like that, and go placidly about and skim away on the next tack, perfectly comfortable, you know, and leave that stranger looking profane and embarrassed, and the initiated slatting the floor with their tails in unison and their faces transfigured with holy joy. And it was the same with phrases. She would drag home a long phrase as if it had a grand sound and play it 6 nights and 2 matinees and explain it in a new way every time, for which she had to, for all she cared for was the phrase. She wasn't interested in what it meant and knew those dogs hadn't wit enough to catch her anyway. Yes, she was a daisy. She wasn't afraid of anything. She had such confidence in the ignorance of those creatures. She even brought anecdotes that she heard the family and dinner guests laugh and shout over. And as a rule, she got the nub of one chestnut hitched onto another chestnut, where of course it didn't fit and hadn't any point. And when she delivered the nub, she fell over and rolled on the floor and laughed and barked in the most insane way, while I could see that she was wondering to herself why it didn't seem as funny as it did when she first heard it. But no harm was done. The others rolled and barked too, privately ashamed of themselves for not seeing the point and never suspecting that the fault was not with them, and there wasn't any to see. You can see by these things that she was a rather vain and frivolous character. Still, she had virtues, and enough to make up, I think. She had a kind heart and gentle ways, and never harbored resentments for injuries done her, but put them easily out of her mind and forgot them. And she taught her children her kindly way, and from her we learned also to be brave and prompt in time of danger, and not to run away, but face the peril that threatened friend or stranger, and help them the best we could without stopping to think what the cost might be to us. And she taught us not by words only, but by example, and that is the best way, and the surest, and the most lasting. Why, the brave things she did, the splendid things. She was just a soldier, and so modest about it. Well, you couldn't help admiring her, and you couldn't help imitating her. Not even a King Charles Spaniel could remain entirely despicable in her society. So, as you see, there was more to her than her education. Chapter 2. When I was well grown, at last, I was sold and taken away, and I never saw her again. She was broken-hearted, and so was I, and we cried. But she comforted me as well as she could, and said we were sent into this world for a wise and good purpose, and must do our duties without repining, take our life as we might find it, live it for the best of others, and never mind about the results. They were not our affair. She said men who did like this would have a noble and beautiful reward by and by in another world, and although we animals would not go there, to do well and right without reward, and to give our brief lives a worthiness and dignity which in itself would be a reward. She gathered these things from time to time when she had gone to the Sunday school with her children, and had laid them upon her memory more carefully than she had done with those other words and phrases, and she had studied them deeply for her good and ours. One may see by this that she was a wise and thoughtful head, for all there was so much lightness and vanity in it. So we said our farewells, and looked upon each other through our tears, and the last thing she said, keeping it for the last to make me remember it the better, I think, was, "In memory of me, when there is a time of danger to another, do not think of yourself. Think of your mother, and do as she would do." Do you think I could forget that? No. Well, that's the end of chapters 1 and 2. A bit of a sad note to end on, with our lead dog being sold and moved away from his mama. I remember when all my siblings left, a whole week before I did, and I was very lonesome. And then I went to my new home, and I left everything I knew behind. It was scary and sad. But I loved my new home and my new parents, and it's just the best thing that could have happened to me. I just had to get used to the change. Hopefully, the dog in this story will feel the same way, once he gets used to his new surroundings. We'll find out next week when we read Chapter 3. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and be sure to subscribe so you can join in the rest of the fun here in Pupper Pie Land. See you next Monday for another Music Monday song, and on Wednesday for our weekly Wiki article. Have a great weekend. Bye!